Welcome to Jobbed Out, the wrestling editorial that reminds you that you don't lose a Royal Rumble if you don't have 2 feet to touch the floor. April is Limb Loss Awareness Month, to pay respect to those who've lost their arms or legs for various reasons through their lives, whether by injury or disease, and continue to keep on living. The 27th of the month is known as Show Your Mettle Day, encouraging amputees to wear their prosthetics with pride rather than to cover them up. So the world sees how many around them have had to deal with extra obstacles just to live the same lives as those with their limbs intact. While pro wrestling showcases the best bodies and over-the-top theatrics, these performers also fit the mold, whose amputations may have prevented anybody else from entering this business, but not these guys. Today, I'm showing some love to the stars of sports entertainment who did what many of us so-called able-bodies couldn't do, and they did it without all their limbs. This is Freaks 5 Pro Wrestlers Who Are Also Amputees. Number 5. Dustin Thomas. That's right, in a video where I talk about wrestlers who performed while missing one limb, I'm actually starting this list with somebody who's missing 2. Thomas lost both his legs due to spinal problems at the age of 3, so he's never really known life on 2 feet. Still, the lifelong wrestling fan, Thomas's physical limitations stopped most companies from even tabling the notion of working with him. He would get his first opportunity in New Jersey's ECPW before going viral in Game Changer Wrestling, when they used him as a fan plant who eventually took on and nearly beat Tony Deppen. He would lose the match but win the crowd over, and 1 month later he'd take part in All Elite Wrestling's inaugural show, Double or Nothing, even getting some good offense in. Number 4. Steve Chamberlain. Former semi-pro football player Steve Chamberlain lost his right leg in a motorcycle accident in 1999. Not letting the loss slow him down, Chamberlain broke into pro wrestling so that he could help inspire others.
They think, life's over, my leg's gone. It's like, no, it's not. Look what I do.
Chamberlain's dedication led to the 50 Legs charity, a group focused on helping other amputees get the prosthetics and orthotics that they need to live normal lives. As for Chamberlain's wrestling career, well, he was once famously signed to a WWE contract, but then his contract was withdrawn. Why, you may ask? Senior Vice President of Talent Relations John Laurinaitis was responsible for this one, as he infamously hired the wrong one-legged wrestler. In fact, the performer he was supposed to hire was actually number 3. Zack Gwan. A future American Ninja Warrior contestant, Gwan got onto the wrestling radar when he debuted with TNA Wrestling as Tenacious Z. When WWE got word of this one-legged wonder, they snapped up the opportunity to sign the wrong guy. No! But once that was resolved, Gwan became a WWE superstar. And by superstar, I mean pawn in the feud between Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon. What made Gwan unique was that, unlike Chamberlain, he would actually take his prosthetic off before matches and still worked a fast-paced, high-flying style. Unfortunately, the WWE really only had one role for him. He was the little handicapped kid that existed to be beaten up by the real villains. Gwan's career took a downward turn as injuries piled up and drugs became a factor. But in the years since, Gwan has cleaned up and had a resurgence, still wrestling to this day. Number 2. Chris Mendez. Not unlike Gwan, Sgt Chris Mendez got his big break in TNA Wrestling. Sgt Mendez lost his left leg while serving in Iraq in 2006. After receiving a Purple Heart, Melendez contacted Ken Anderson with a dream in mind: to become a pro wrestler. Anderson, part of the Wounded Warrior Project, hooked Melendez up with Team 3D, where he trained before debuting on Impact in front of his hometown. While never winning a title with Impact Wrestling, he never was presented poorly and always appeared competitive no matter the program. He would leave the company in 2016 and return to the Indies. Now, normally this is where I'd give honorable mentions of wrestlers who didn't make my top 5 list, but that's not really fair considering this subject, is it? Instead, I would just like to express that if you know or have known an amputee, I think it would be a great gesture to reach out to them. Let them know that you appreciate them and that you're proud to have known them. Maybe even seek out a good local charity to spread the love and help others out. As a Canadian, I recommend War Amps, as well as the Amputee Coalition of Canada, but you do you. Now, with all that said and done, who's my number 1 pro wrestler who was also an amputee? Number 1. The Texas Tornado. Part of the world-renowned Von Erich family, Carrie was widely regarded as the biggest and best wrestler of the bunch. He had charisma, he had size, he had the moves. On top of being the only Von Erich to hold the NWA World Heavyweight title, Carrie was also the one that Vince McMahon managed to score. Joining the WWE in 1990, Carrie would become Intercontinental Champion before fading away and leaving the company 2 years later. What people didn't know at the time, Carrie had actually lost his right foot after mangling it in a motorcycle accident back in '86. Carrie's drive was his own undoing, as he attempted to walk and wrestle on it well before it was healed. Things got worse and his foot was eventually amputated. Very few within the industry knew.
I mean, I grabbed his other foot, Paul grabbed his other foot,
Right.
and he wasn't supposed to. And we were just supposed to pull him out of the ring. And I remember it came off, and he when he freaked out, grabbed, put the boot right back on.
So he totally pretty much kayfabed the entire locker room.
Exactly. No one knew.
Carrie made a point to work the boys and keep the secret alive, to the point where Carrie would even wear his wrestling boots in the shower. Unfortunately, the entire Von Erich family was plagued with tragedy. Just like brothers Mike and Chris had done before him, Carrie would take his own life in 1993. But there you have it. 5 pro wrestlers who also lost a leg to amputation. The hardest pill to swallow is obviously Carrie. As if he had come around maybe 20 years later, not only would he have not had to keep the accident and amputation a secret, but he probably would have been celebrated for accomplishing so much minus a foot. He could have gotten that psychological help he needed to overcome those demons, could have even been a bigger inspiration to others. Now with all that said, I do want to ask you, where do you stand on amputees performing in the squared circle? Do you see them as inspirational underdogs like Sgt Mendez and Steve Chamberlain? Or do you think companies using amputees is exploitive? Who had the best career in the bunch, and who should have been treated better? Gowan! Excuse me, I was saying Gowan. Now let me know what you think in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more, because I want you to be a part of this conversation too. For now though, I better get my shoulders off the mat, so I want to thank you for tuning in to Jobbed Out. I'll catch you next time.